Hello, today's lecture is about startups and finance as research topic, but also as an introductory into the, let's say, Berlin eco-environment of how to find finance at startup. So that's the starting point, and then after I lead to some topics, some research we do, and some general topics about startups and finance. You will find three scientific articles you can read about. When we speak startups and finance, about what do we speak? Of course, we speak about different stages when you start up an enterprise. Just imagine you're early startup, you just have an idea, maybe a business model, business plan, and you're looking for money. At this time, hardly anyone will give you money, except of friends, family, some fools. You have some business angels who take the risk. You might try it with crowdfunding, which is more and more popular. We will speak about it later. And some venture capital funds, which take a high risk to give you money, but there are not many. So it's really hard to get money, but it's different from later stages. When you have customers, when you have when you are a legal entity as a startup, you might have other sources. There, of course, you have venture capital. You have other private equity. You might have corporate capital coming in. So there are different ways and options to be financed and find investments on the market. And later on, you have mergers, acquisitions with corporate, strategic alliances with small, medium-sized or larger companies, and buyout funds where you actually sell your company for the future. So there are many, many different options. I will mainly focus in the early phases because that's a research area where a lot of gaps are existing and a lot of knowledge actually needs to be developed to get more grip on that. And there are many, many developments just as crowdfunding gets more and more popular. To put it also in a row, that were private sources of finance. Actually, 40% of all finance in the startup phase comes from public sources. In Germany, you have the KfW bank giving loans, but also direct money. You have the state giving money. And the Ministry of Economy, for instance, gives you very early in early stages by presenting a business plan, an exist scholarship, about 150,000 euro if you are an academic startup. So many, many money also comes from these sources. Here's some information about the exist startup type. You can apply for also at our university. We have yearly, I think, around 15 young startups or early startups that receive this. In Berlin, you also have the option of the Berlin startup type. That's a bit less money, but still it's worth going for it, at least in the beginning when you're actually refining your business model, when you look for advice, when you need some basic finance for yourself. It makes a lot of sense going for that. Another option very early on, as mentioned, is crowdfunding. And crowdfunding or crowd investing in main terms are actually four different components. You can have reward-based crowdfunding where you actually promise someone giving you money for going on with your startup, for developing products. A reward, you have donation-based crowdfunding for people who donate money for you, giving you money for free to go on with your startup. You have lending-based crowdfunding, a bit comparable to lending money from a bank. You lend it from private person who love to lend you money for your crowdfunding campaign. And you have equity-based crowdfunding, actually crowdfunding where you give shares of your project, your startup, to others giving you money. There are several platforms of that. Kickstarter may be the most prominent one, but there are other ones. It's a way to go to present your project and to ask for a certain amount of money to go on. It's more and more popular. There are startups that can actually gather a lot of money there. It is an option. That was actually the starting point of one of our research projects we had lately. We are actually looking what terms, what topics make you successful running a campaign. And we were doing that in Kickstarter, looking at 300,000 different crowdfunding campaigns from startups and projects, and first defining what actually successful might mean. And we were looking at the number of people giving you money or supporting you, and the amount of money, actually the amount you were asking for, if you have got less or more. And you can see that the highly successful campaigns received more money than they had asked for, and there were more than 150 people, bakers, giving money for them. So, and then we were looking what are the topics behind that highly successful startup campaigns or crowdfunding campaigns. And when you look into that, and we used a machine learning tool like topic modeling for calculating that here, and you see that it's more leisure time. It's not what you would expect topics as sustainability or digital or something like that. No, it's music, laugh, record, build, move, and topics that it's some practical things to do, some leisure time things. And that was quite surprising, that not the usual topics that you will find in the press and the news, but some very banal topics were actually making crowdfunding campaigns successful in this case. Another option, and that's for Berlin here also, that's EBB Ventures, that's investment bank in Berlin, Brandenburg. High-Tech Gründerfonds is a national bank, a public bank giving money like KfW. That is public banking supporting startups. That's an option next to crowdfunding, next to maybe looking for early venture capital. That's the option to go and to get some funding in the way of loans, of money you have to pay back as startup later on. But under special conditions, it's not private banking here. So, and then you have business angels and founding angels. Business angels are normally, in a common case, founders who were successfully founding one enterprise or more and invest in other enterprises coming up, maybe in your enterprise as startup. And founding angels doing the same, but they also go into the management of this new enterprises. And there are both ways you find. You have a club of founding angels in Berlin, you have a club of business angels in Berlin. It's a quite early chance of receiving funding, and it's a good way to do, but you have to distinguish and to make a choice also as startup what you want. Do you want to receive money with less influence, or do you want to have a very experienced entrepreneur in most cases into the company, managing with you, being part of the team and founding the company with you? If it goes to venture capital, you have many companies in a venture capital scene, pre-seeds, very early investors in startups, seed and pre-seed, and later venture capital investors. So it's a broad field where you really have to go busy with that. Some investors will more or less influence you, determine decisions, get more into the companies. Others stay further away. We will see. I mean, that's actually, it is partly your choice where to go and what way you want to attract investments for your own startup. When you model it like that, as we did in an unpublished paper now, which is under review, you see that founding angels come really early. Business angels come a bit later, and the same when you see from venture capital, you have pre-seed and you have seed venture capital. Put in a broader perspective, you have actually the founding angel in the middle before really venture capital comes. Before, you have some serial entrepreneurs as business angels investing. You have family, friends, parallel entrepreneurs actually giving money pretty early in the development, in the ID phase. Other sources come later. Another options for receiving money quite early is in pitches, competitions of young startups, early stage startups. And you have the business plan Wettbewerb Berlin-Brandenburg. You have stage 2 as the largest competition among very early startups in academic institutions. There are 40 universities yearly in Berlin presenting their startups. You have Climate Launchpad, you have EIT Digital. That are all things that happen in Berlin. There are many, many more outside, but it's part of the choice you have as startup when you want to go for it. So, summarizing, you have several choices. In the beginning, you can ask friends, you can ask business angels, serial entrepreneurs, maybe supporting you financially. You have the public way, you can apply for Exist Stipe or other Stipes as early startup. You might launch a crowdfunding campaign looking how successful you are, as our research shows that you have to use certain terms and certain keywords in being successful. You can go to pitches as well. You can actually ask business angel clubs or founding angel clubs. So you have a broad range of options to receive money, but in the end of the day, it's your choice. And many startups, particularly in a high-tech field, need a lot of money, and then it really, actually, this choice is more and more limited to mostly venture capital. But even there, as you have seen the entire list of venture capital firms, you have a huge choice, a very broad choice of different companies offering venture capital to you. And in this way, we launched a research looking at actually on what determines and what's important, and we were making a conjoint analysis among 303 after the sample was cleaned startups who were looking for venture capital, founders and serial founders, and we were looking how did they make their choices, on what criteria did they actually base their choices. Conjoint analysis is a rather new kind of analysis developed in the 60s to rate products and other things according to their characteristics. So in comparison, the startups had to make choices what's more important and less important as characteristic of venture capital. As the data show, it's broadly distributed. It's let's say German-speaking territory in Austria, Germany, Switzerland, but actually all branches are more or less included. When it comes to the results, you see, in a general, without distinguishing the startups, you see that reputation and network is for startups the most important variable to choose venture capital. So is the venture capital company having a large network that can support in developing a startup? Does it have a reputation which is very good? Does it have experience? And that are the variables that are really important in making a choice for venture capital. There are not so many differences between one-time founders and serial founders. It's almost the same numbers, but where you see real differences, and we were looking at all characteristics of the founding personality, of what the business plan is saying, and you can actually distinguish between research-focused startups that focus on their own qualities, on the capabilities of the startup, developing new products, and you have price-focused startups that really look more at the customer and mainly are oriented towards pricing, marketing and pricing strategies. And there you see a huge difference, that the company valuation is much more important for price-focused founders than for other founders. And for resource-based founders, you have this network, again, reputation and industry experience, which is a most important variable. So in summary, you can keep in mind that even if you have to make a choice, and you have to make a choice as startups, you still have a broad range of options to choose. between public and private money, even within, and even when you need a lot of money, where you really have to go for venture capital. You have a lot of choice where you can choose the venture capital giver, the investor, which fits best to yourself. And you see that this choice is taken differently according to the kind of startups you are or you have. Still in the fields, there are many questions unanswered. There's a broad range of research questions that can be formulated.